Hello, welcome to the very first episode of Game Master Circle. I'm Diggy, and I'm here with Voyeur and Astral. Hello, say hi.
Hi. Hi, this is.
Hello.
Oh, you don't know.
Go
It's
ahead.
okay. Just we're just gonna start the very first one talking over each other. That's
Yes.
perfectly fine. Go right ahead.
All right.
Go ahead,
Hi.
Voyeur.
All right. I'm Voyeur. I I have come to realize over the last few years that when I came up with a joke handle for Twitch, that it was a very poor decision.
No, I love it, and I just wanna. If we get popular, people will call you Voyeur. Cause and effect.
Well, the
And
irony is I made the account for Twitch and I barely ever log on to Twitch.
That is irony. Yes.
uh, and I am Astral. On Twitch, I am the Astral Hammer. Hello. Let me get a proper wave. Come on. There we go. The filter here is a little wonky sometimes.
It it looked good. Yeah, it looked good for me. So, uh, before we get into our first topic, which is going to be our plans for session zeros and how we handle session zeros and session ones, um, what kind of experience do you both have um, in regards to being game masters or storytellers? And how much experience do you have doing these things?
Okay, I'll go first on this one, I think.
Okay.
Um, I've been running games in various different systems, including two of my own that I've developed, one being a LARP back in undergrad, and one being a proper pen and paper system that is currently in sort of beta sort of testing. It's more or less done. It just needs some tweaking. For about the past decade or a little bit more, actually, now that I think on it, various systems like White Wolf's Exalted, Second Edition, the Serenity RPG system, Fate, a little bit of D&D, just to name a few of them, and of course the one I've been writing myself as well.
All right. Yeah. The irony here, further irony rather, is I don't feel like I've actually. Wait, is okay. The sound is coming in good.
Yes, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I don't actually feel like I've run that much. I have done a few campaigns in my time, long running campaigns, um, in a few different systems. I've done a little bit of D&D. Um, much like Astral, I've also done the second edition of Exalted. I've also I've run a few White Wolf systems. I've also run a Dark Heresy campaign, from Warhammer 40K.
And myself, I am actually on the opposite side of the two of you. My primary system was D&D and Pathfinder, and I dabbled a little bit in the White Wolf systems. Actually, I believe it was you guys that I've played Exalted with for the first time, and
And what an experience it's been.
I
Yeah.
will say it's an experience, and to anyone who's ever thought about playing Exalted, I would not recommend it to be your first tabletop game. Um,
Oh
there's
gosh, no, that's
yeah,
precisely why I've been developing my own system because I like stuff about Exalted, but no, it's not a good first system,
no.
even as a storyteller.
Oh no, it's there's so many bells and whistles. When you guys sent me the books so I could learn, I thought I was just going to get like maybe one or two, when I opened up that file, there was like at least 12 different books in there, and I said, I'm not reading all of this stuff just so I could just. I thought I was going to be a supporting character, and that no, but yeah.
Supporting character.
To be fair, we kind of just compiled everything together and we're like, yeah, we got it all in one file.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I thought it was literally just 1 or 2 books in that file. I was mistaken. So,
yeah, we did go overboard there, and I apologize for that.
Just a little, maybe. Just a little.
well, I actually enjoy the campaign that I was brought into. So I have no real complaints there, but it's just Exalted is a fantastic system, just not one I would say like if somebody was new to tabletop RPGs and said, "Hey, I want to try RPGs. What game would you suggest?" And the person who suggests Exalted as their first needs to be put in the corner.
Well, you don't want to start off with something ludicrously overpowered and insanely over the top.
Well, why not?
It's more for simplicity's sake. I feel like maybe for like just starting out, I think Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is an ideal starting place for new tabletop RPG players. I think once you get used to that, and you're like, all right, D&D 5e is a little too simplistic. I want a little, I want a little variety in my life. Then you can be like, well, there's this wonderful system called Exalted. If you think D&D is too simplistic, have at you.
Honestly speaking, Dark Heresy isn't a bad option either, because you could basically roll up the entire character. Considering how often characters die in the system, it's a necessity.
Yeah, that was
at least lets you roll up everything.
Yeah, that's a system that is clearly designed with making new characters fast in mind.
I will be honest. I looked at Dark Heresy. I've not found anyone to run a Dark Heresy game where I can play. So that would be something I don't have much experience in, but I did look at the rules, and Dark Heresy looks like fun.
Sorry, I think some of what you just said there got cut off, Diggy.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I said Dark Heresy looks like it would be fun. I
It's a
don't
lot of fun.
I have nobody to like actually run the game for me. But because I've looked at the rules and all that stuff, but it looks like it would be fun.
Well, if I ever had the time to get back to running it,
Yeah.
it's a big if. But going back to what you said about D&D, while I am not familiar with how 5th edition works, you do have a valid point there. Actually, the last time I ran D&D was about a year or two ago. Of all things, I was running it for a friend's bachelor party.
Very nice.
Well, it wasn't properly a bachelor party, but he and I had played it a lot in high school, and his fiance had never done any tabletop RPGs. So he was like, "Hey, you know what? Let's give her, let's let her experience it at least once." So I mean, originally he was going to hire a professional GM, but that fell through because COVID. And so the plan B was him asking me, "Hey, could you run a one-shot game?"
Do you want to know something very funny? I have I've been playing tabletop games for almost 20 years now. I don't think I've ever run a one shot, only because my personal philosophy is I don't like sessions going more than 4 hours. And I don't think you can successfully handle a one shot truly in just 4 hours.
Yeah. Oh, it was a very brief story for that session. Yeah, for exactly that reason.
Oh, okay.
That said, if I have the time and inspiration, since the big limiting factor for me with running games is coming up with story ideas, I will probably do future games with them.
Oh, okay.
Nifty. Yeah, what was the last version of D&D I actually ran? 2.5?
Ooh.
I'm
2.5.
two,
It's been a while.
2 or 3, because it was 3,
Yeah.
then 3.5, and then
Yeah.
there was
Maybe it was 3.5 then.
then there was that
or
dreaded
2.
fourth edition, which
Yeah, with-
which I actually liked. I know I'm about to get yeah.
I don't know you anymore, Diggy.
I personally didn't have a problem with 4E, but I know a lot of people did. But I you know what it was? It's because I understood what they were trying to do.
Oh, fair.
I have an idea for what it seemed they were trying to do. I don't know if we would agree on that.
I think they were trying to cash in on the popularity of WoW.
Okay, yeah, that is the same thought I had.
And they were trying to get my thought was they were trying to get people from WoW to come play tabletop games, and they used a lot of the same language, but it alienated a lot of the core fans, and now we have 5e.
It did not play to the strengths of tabletop.
No, it was definitely a game that you needed to have miniatures. Like if you really wanted to enjoy the game.
Which is something I never actually do.
So like you're more of a theater of the mind type of.
Yes.
Okay.
I suppose if I was running a game with a large enough group of people, I'd have to use miniatures. And jumping everywhere with my thoughts. When I did run that not quite bachelor party session, that was 3rd edition D&D because that's the only thing I have the books for.
Fair.
Well, so that even draws the question: if for me saying I think D&D would be a good starting point, right? I wouldn't throw beginners in 3rd edition. I would bring them into 5th edition, because 5th edition is very simplistic, and it's not only is it simplistic, but it's not super bogged down on rules.
Right.
From everything I've heard, I've not had a chance to play 5th edition yet myself, but from everything I've heard, they did a really good job there in simplifying the D&D of editions past without losing the flavor and without losing the potential complexity and interest of them.
Yeah, but then you have like for people who miss 3rd edition or 3.5, you have Pathfinder, which now has which is Pathfinder 2nd edition, which it married 3.5 and took all the things that worked for 4th edition D&D and like married them together. And Pathfinder 2E, I think, is a really good game if you want more complexity to what 5e has.
Okay. I've never played Pathfinder, so I
Same.
can't say one way or the other.
Wait, if you played Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, then yes, you've played Pathfinder.
Oh,
Because
right,
it's
right,
literally
yeah.
it's literally Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 because Pathfinder came when D&D 4th edition came, and they were like, "Well, we want
Right.
our 3.5," which they I can't be mad at them. They did what people were asking for. Because for a little while 4th edition was out, Pathfinder was the was in the like was the go to for a little
Yeah.
while.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But that leads to the topic. When you are running or prepping for a session, how do you handle your session ones? When it comes to like how your players, your prep, how do you handle your session ones when it comes to like your plot hooks, things like that?
Okay, well, I'll take lead on this one, I think.
Go for it.
I improv most of my sessions. Like 95% of a given session is I handle improv. I have a little notebook. It's like 9 by 12, I want to say. Smallish notebook that I'll write like a couple of paragraphs in of like key things that I need to make sure happen or ideas that I want to explore. And everything else will be that like one or two like important plot hooks to kind of grab everybody. And from that point, it's listening, watching what the players do, and kind of hooking into interesting things. For example, a campaign I'm currently running live on streaming these days. Uh, the session two just this Wednesday actually. One of the new people coming in wanted to mess with some Eldritch horror stuff, and I was like, okay, sure. And I decided, hey, I have this kind of up in the air reason for why the broader problem is going on, and was like, hey, it would be actually pretty nifty if the problem is being caused by cultists of other eldritch entities. So I was able to bring in parts of that character's backstory directly into the plot I was running. And sorry, that was for the session 3 Wednesdays ago. The one this past Wednesday, they were going after a glove for that character, so it was a direct hook based on something in that was supposed to eventually be in that character's inventory, and that I was able to kind of loop all that in together. Yeah, that's pretty much how I kind of go about it. It's a trick I learned from the days when I was running a LARP, where I had to be very improvisational with my story hooks. I couldn't plan things out deeply. My players just would destroy anything I attempted that way. And it makes my life way easier. Harder a little bit as far as uh, the end of a session is concerned. It's more tiring, but it gives me way, way more flexibility. And that is huge, I feel. Okay. Who wants next?
I guess I'll go
Yeah,
next.
go ahead, Voyer.
Which, funny enough, I also lean heavily into improv. I had done a fair amount of it when I was an undergrad, and just not even so much the first session, but just in general, GMing. I find a extremely useful skill from improv to have is yes and.
Yes.
Um, Funny enough, when I first ran a game, I did a lot of planning and had a lot of stuff mapped out. But as players, well, any plan you have never survives contact with the players. Just organically over the years, I've leaned heavier into improv with running a game. As for the very first session, what I like to try and do is, if everyone who made their characters has like a backstory or something so that they have an idea for how they're going to play this character. Obviously, the idea going in and how it pans out are two different things, but the clearer an idea they have with that, the better I can get a feel for the group dynamics. Um, and from there, I can figure out how best to mess with everyone.
I'd like to add something if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, if at all possible, I like to involve the players during session 0, during character creation, in the creation of the game world. In
Ooh,
doing so, it really pulls them in and gets them that much more. I can't find the word. That much
involved.
more engaged and
Immersive,
involved
like
and
immersive,
immersed. Yeah,
immersed.
it, yeah, exactly. In the game world, in their characters, it gives me, if they say I have a rival as part of their backstory. Well, there we go. I have an NPC. I can use that rival as an NPC. I have beef with I'm this is important to me, and another character kind of goes against that. Well, there we go. I have stuff I can pull on, and I can encourage with them too, and it makes for much more naturally flowing role playing and a lot more interesting role playing. And people have generally been happy with that approach, from what I can tell. I've not had anybody really complain about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Most of the systems that I have run, like Exalted or Dark Heresy, the the setting, the world building is already pretty firmly established. So I have not been able to incorporate something quite like that. Uh,
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I'm leaning more heavily into systems that are setting neutral or give
mm,
less details, less pre-built details for the setting, so that I have more freedom to make changes, make
right.
decisions. Ask them, what genre would you like to play? Do you want
I
cyberpunk, steampunk? Do you want fantasy?
and
Things of that nature.
yeah, I will add a caveat that that can certainly work with experienced players. If you have a lot of new players, there is more handholding that you'll need to do.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
they would not be able to get as involved in the world building as someone who knows their stuff would be.
Right,
True,
But
not quite as.
right,
You can still get new players,
yeah,
people who it's their first one in. A lot of it depends on the person, really.
yeah,
Some people are better suited, are better suited to be able to do that than others.
right, and that leads to like another reason why I'm happy that we're doing this podcast is because it's like I am 180 degrees different from the both of you because what I'm more heavily planned with when I need to improvise, I can. And it's almost to the point where I've almost perfected it to where people think everything I have is planned out. So it's like for like session zeros. If like the most recent campaign that I'm doing right now, my players they weren't together on the session 0, and I hooked both players in by having them for the first hour of play become invested in the world around them, and then I take it away from them. and
You do the rug pull.
and in some form of tragic mishap. Like I'll use an example of one of the players. They are kind of like an archaeologist, and they were with a team of like-minded people, colleagues, and things, and they got into a temple, and they went in with one of their colleagues while the rest of their team was out digging up and cataloging things outside the temple. And they had a few encounters inside with like some puzzles and like one actual like encounter with like a monster. And then they went after a monster because, you know, creatures have intelligence, and when they were getting bogged down, they ran away, and the player ran after the creature.
What, you mean everything isn't a fight to the death?
Oh yeah,
all
no,
the
of
time?
course. You know, I'm going to. I that's another topic that we can get into a little later. But I have some serious gripes about DMs and GMs and storytellers who do that. But they get outside to where the rest of their party was, and the rest of their team is lying down dead because they were ambushed while they were inside. And that was a
consequences
consequence.
for chasing after the thing and not, you know, going back out.
Right.
Yes, they done goofed.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
very nice.
But I never give the player a situation they can't get out of, because I'm a firm believer that encounters should feel dangerous, or like this could be the end of my character if I don't handle this the right way. So right after they survived and they used up all their healing resources, I ended the session.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. I've got a good example of that kind of an encounter too, from the session on Wednesday, actually. The party had completed their mission. They'd dealt with the cultists in the nearby dungeon and gotten the glove and all that, and come back to report to the town's mayor, who was their contact for actually reaching the guild people. They get a touch greedy. One of them, who is a bit of a pyromaniac, decides to encourage the mayor to be a bit forthcoming about some information with fire. And I'm like, okay, well, you kind of lose control of that fire a little bit, and now you're trapped in a burning building. And eventually, that said character was able to control the fire enough to make a way for them to get out, but not before the entire mayor's house went down in ash, and they were promptly told by the town guard, please leave, don't come back. They're never going to be welcome in that town again, that's for sure.
What you mean to tell me your players are not allowed to burn down important buildings and and things like that, and not have a room at the inn afterwards?
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, they're the designated good guys.
Okay, no, these ones are not good. These ones definitely err towards the, some of them kind of evil, but not, you know, puppy kicking evil.
I was going to say, I listen in.
Evil.
I listen into those.
They're like
those
neutral
sessions.
or evil and very much chaotic.
I would even say they are probably lawful evil.
Lawful evil, yes, some of them are.
They definitely hit the lawful evil side, but then that's another topic that we could talk about is alignment.
Some of the other players in that campaign, and it's kind of a revolving door. That what you saw in that session was some of the one of the old people from session 1, and a couple of new people as well. So I've got a bit of like people coming in and not being able to show up for like the next session or two or however much. There's some definitely chaotic evils in the group. They just weren't there that day.
I'm just saying, I've listened, and like I was listening from I think it was session 2 I came in, and you know there's a problem when the chat starts talking about how one of them is a pyromancer, and there's like fire emojis and everything all over the place.
Oh well, that's because I knew that was going to happen when that person was like, "Ooh, yes, I want to play." I was like, "Yeah, okay, here comes some fire and some chaos." that let me kind of be prepared for it, so I could react accordingly when she loses control of herself, of her own self control, and hey, now there's a bunch of fire everywhere, and you're in trouble. Well, everyone else would have been in trouble. She's immune to fire, so she was fine. She had no concerns in the world.
Well, all right. Since we're on the topic of session ones and or session zeros, session ones, as a player, can you give an example of like one of your most memorable session ones?
Um, Probably my most memorable session one would have to be the Dark Heresy game, in all honesty, because I was the new person coming in on an already long running campaign,
Right, you were.
considerably underleveled compared to everyone else.
Well, as I recall, I did give you a much more advanced start, just to try and catch up with everyone.
Yeah, yeah, I was still underleveled comparatively, and it was like, okay, I've got some catching up to do. But what was really good about that was the situation you threw us into on that particular story, which let me show off why I could be such a valuable player to the team and helped build kind of character group cohesiveness.
Yeah, that is one of the things I actually really appreciated in that campaign was everyone on the team had a role to play and just completely committed to it.
Yeah, I don't remember very many details about it at the moment. I think that was the one with the planet with the dinosaur, if memory serves.
Ah, yes.
Where well, let's put it this way. I basically made a dinosaur salsa by tossing a well-timed frag grenade into its mouth because my character's nickname was Frag.
Yes.
So it
It
was like, yes, this is appropriate.
It makes sense. It makes
yeah,
sense.
it I mean that gets into a house rule that I usually do in my games of chunky salsa, which is, if you do something like throw a grenade into a creature's mouth, I don't care what the mechanics say. It's going to die.
Okay. What
The
about you, Voyer? What's your memorable first?
Ah, the one that's coming to my mind right now, it's not even so much because it was the first session, but it was more how the GM in that particular game had used it against me later on. Much later on actually. But it was a seventh sea campaign. The first edition of it. The second edition works completely differently. I don't really know how the second edition works. Where if you're not familiar with seventh sea, it's basically, it's like a swashbuckling sort of setting that, at least in the first edition, the mechanics basically ran on Hollywood logic.
Like a Sinbad movie from like
Yes.
the 60s?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I have heard that at the office when they were making the first edition, they had a poster that said, "What would Errol Flynn do?"
oh my, yes. That says it all.
and
Oh no.
and the game was filled with like all these history nerd in jokes. So I figured I'd lean into that, and since one of the countries in the game was basically a France right before the right before the revolution, and then in the course of the game it becomes a revolutionary France. I made a character in there that was basically Karl Marx, and his contribution to the revolution was that as an educated man, he was very good at making explosives.
So you just went around blowing things up.
Yes, but for the cause,
I mean, if it's
for
not
Always
for
for
the
the cause.
cause,
for
yeah.
freedom and equality,
Always for the cause. Yeah,
the
yeah.
oppressive system must be crushed.
Remember the 5th of November.
But what I appreciated with it was, with that session, it was just, I didn't think much of it, but way down the line, there was a powerful NPC that we ran into where she had lost a sister in the place that I had bombed in that first session.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh. Oh.
She was out for
Oh.
blood, and there was no way that we'd be able to take her down. In fact, I think there were a few times where given the circumstances of pirates and swashbuckling, that we kind of had to work with her, and she clearly set me up to die.
It's almost like your actions had consequences.
Have consequences?
Yeah, my God.
Hey, fancy that. Fancy that.
Which, I mean, did lead to some great role playing, but that's another story.
Oh, trust me. At some point, we will get into role playing and how to help players get into role playing who are shy, because that is a thing that happens. If I have to say my most memorable session 1 would have to be my very first game ever playing any tabletop RPG. It was D&D 3.5, and my DM brought me in. It was in the middle of a campaign already, and they talked me into to trying it. I was one of those people like, oh, D&D, you're cultists and Satanists, so I was like, no, I'm not gonna try it. But they talked me into it with cookies. That's not a joke. They literally bribed me with cookies to come play D&D. So I rolled a cleric in 3.5. If you don't know anything about being a cleric in 3.5, it is not beginner friendly. So, by the way, the way that he introduced me, he never told me like what was going on. The party was in hell.
A cleric in hell.
I'm a cleric who was in a jail cell in hell. And my And my very first role was to escape the prison cell. I rolled a natural 1 for my very first role in D&D. I've been hooked ever since.
Oh gosh, a nat 1
a nat a nat 1 on my very first role in tabletop games, and I've been hooked ever since. But now I am known for people who've GM'd me or DM'd me as the ruiner of games.
I think I'm one of the few GMs who's been able to handle you just fine.
Well, so yeah, right. And I give you credit because you have asked me to break your game.
That's true.
And I have held back because I'm like, I like this system. I don't want to break it. And if I break it, he's going to, the rules are going to get changed. And I don't want these rules to get changed because I can easily break them. But if I break them, things are going to get changed. And I'm going to cry and I'm going to feel bad. So I've curbed myself. But I really so bad want to break the rules.
This is reminding me of another Game Zero where I was a player that you may appreciate. Where I was playing Werewolf the Apocalypse. So, shape-changing werewolves.
I'm actually mildly familiar with that.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of new players, but I was not a new player. This was not my first rodeo. But, like the idea was, that I was supposed to help the new players get the feel for, doing a role-playing game. First roll I had to do was a botch, which is like a natural one in D&D.
You gotta love when your
This
first
was
rolls are
immediately
botches.
followed by another roll to see how badly that went. That was another botch. The entire story of the first session turned into rescuing my character.
So effectively, one of the stories from the Dark Heresy game, the I think it was a grenade tossed into the group of party members, guards, and enemies that
Yes.
went horribly astray, but landed in just the right place because it was like, okay, let's see how bad this. Oh dear.
I
And
know exactly what you're talking about.
you know exactly the moment. I wasn't there for it, but I've heard the stories, and that sounded glorious.
Actually, now that you bring it up, Astral, now I'm trying to remember if I'm gonna go by like a favorite moment, it would have to be with your system, with my character Dusk.
Oh, Dusk.
Dusk and her brother Irie. And it was a chase scene. I remember this. It was a chase scene where we were being chased, and Irie's player wanted to slow the pursuer down. And it wasn't a botch. It was a crit success.
Yes. Yes. Crit success on trying to slow down the priest riding the horse. And no, it wasn't slowed down. It was sped up so much that the horse and the priest became bones.
And what
Because I
it
was like,
shocked
oh,
everybody.
Failure and success.
Yeah, there was failure and success, and I love that. Like we role played it where Dusk was so horrified that like, what are we going to do now? We were being chased. They were only after us because like Dusk was like considered like a heretic because Dusk had a quote unquote forbidden magic. Now they're going to go after because
you murdered her.
Because now we murdered the priest. Now we're gonna on top of everything.
Yes. Oh, that was a fun little campaign. I hope we can get back to that at some point.
I would love to. That would be amazing. I have so many ideas, but speaking of, since we've all of us touched on one thing, and I want to touch on this subject before because we have a few more minutes left before we can call this podcast to a close. Bringing in new players and the hot topic that's going around in the tabletop RPG community is inclusion. One of the biggest things right now is you have the old guard saying that there are companies that are trying to cater to people that aren't really real fans. And I actually have like a really bad taste in my mouth when I hear that because it's like these games are made to escape and where you can be anyone you want to be, and because these rule books now are having like printed things where like they're saying like let's include everyone, everyone is allowed to be at the table, and these people are just saying really hurtful and nasty things, and I don't like it.
I mean, okay, you can see on the wall behind me a couple of little heart-shaped posters. That should speak volumes for what I would think on the matter. But I'll put it in the briefest way possible. I agree with you 100%. These are supposed to be fantasy worlds. These are supposed to be places where you can be what you want to be, where ethnic background does not matter when there's the possibility of being a dragonkin or a dwarf or an elf or an alien. What does skin color matter there? What does gender or sex matter there? What does ability matter there?
Well, I mean, as a
When
tabletop game, abilities actually matter.
no, but not ability in that sense. Ability
Okay.
like wheelchair versus able to walk versus that's that kind of ability.
Oh, okay.
Other physical disabilities. Why should it matter what the person might have?
I
Even for the characters, why
well, no,
should it
I think
matter?
I think from like all these forums and things, because I have this morbid curiosity of the uh
You read the
of things.
comments section, don't
Yeah,
you?
My condolences.
yeah, I delve deep into the comment section, and then like
You are a brave soul
no, because
and a foolish one.
I have a beer after, and I'm like, I don't understand like the logic here. But it's like it's more that they're complaining that the like Wizards of the Coast and Paizo respectively are putting in rules in their books about inclusion. And it's like, if it doesn't pertain to you, why are you getting upset about
Can you
this?
give an example of one of those rules?
Oh yeah,
Because I'm not in on this one. I've not heard about this.
I can actually. I have it in my hand. Actually, 1 second. La la la.
Mhm.
I was just holding it in my hand. No, that's narrative collaboration. Where is this page? It is.
Yeah, I've just been quiet because I'm just waiting for my turn here.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was
I'm
just
looking for
going to
this.
say that new people means new ideas, and new ideas. Maybe not all of them are useful, but there will be some good ideas in there, or at least interesting ideas. And as this is a game of the mind, you got nowhere to go but up. With new ideas.
New people also means new blood, which
Mm-hmm.
means continued existence and ability for these games and systems to thrive.
Yes.
Do these
Yes.
folks really want the systems they love to die and no longer be supported because there's not the money in it for the companies?
Yeah, I always have a very dim view of gatekeeping.
That's the word
And
I was like. I hate that. I hate it. It's it's a public game. It's not
mm-hmm.
just yours. Why are
Yeah.
you trying to create like?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you and your own individual gaming group don't want to run by those rules, that's where there's room for house rules.
Well, yeah.
But
Even then, it's like. So you're like, are you saying? Oh, it was like there was one where it said, Pathfinder has this. They put like for some subject matter where people might feel uncomfortable, right? If they feel uncomfortable, you put a card with an X on it. So like sometimes somebody might not want to say out loud that the subject matter is uncomfortable for them. You put a card with an X in the middle of the table, and you tap the X and stuff, and then people were saying, well, if you're uncomfortable with it, blah blah blah, you shouldn't be playing. Please.
no, if stuff that is going to be making people no.
Yeah.
No.
If you're not comfortable with it, you're not having fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of playing the freaking game, to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know. My purpose of playing the game is to topple governments.
Well, are you having
well,
fun toppling
one-
governments?
Well, one step at a time, Diggy. One step at a time.
Because if you're having fun trying to topple those governments, then the purpose is still to have fun. It's just you're toppling governments in the process of doing so.
Oh, I trust and believe. Once we pick up that Exalted game again, I am going to try to topple Malpheus. That is that is.
I am looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to what sort of shenanigans you're going to be able to try to pull off, and if and when you'll be able to.
Voyeur is laughing.
There's a bunch of governments
I
that
like
are
the
in
fact that
process
Voyeur's
of being
laughing at that.
toppled from a bunch of the characters, not just yours.
Yeah,
I'm just
well,
saying.
hey, it's Exalted. If you're not changing the shape, if you're not changing the face of the world, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. What are you using all that power for
Yeah.
at that point?
I'm just saying. I think Vignette would be a great replacement.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Vignette would be a great replacement, considering all of the Vignette wouldn't have the problems that the current Yozis have.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
hey,
that's neither here nor there.
yeah.
So, it was. Oh, here it is. It was tools for responsible play. Consent and comfort are important topics for role-playing games, and many designers have created techniques to help facilitate responsible play. Some methods you can use are lines and veils, developed by Ron Edwards, and the X card, developed by John. I am going to mispronounce this word, your name, so I'm not going to. John S. That's all I'm going to say. The X card. Draw an X on a card, and you've got an X card. Place it on the table at the start of the session and describe its use to players. Any player can silently reject content they find upsetting by tapping the X card. Whoever's speaking then rewinds a bit and continues on.
Okay.
Okay, this sounds like a rule more for
Like-
if you're playing with people that you don't know.
Yeah, like if you go like really grim fantasy, like Conan or
Yeah, because in my experience, running games, just with friends,
yeah, you
know,
have a
if-
feel of what everybody
Yeah.
is comfortable with.
and if I think something might be getting close, I'd find ways to broach the subject with those friends in question. Just to see, like, is this something we could go with, or should I come up with something else? Because again, if the game has something uncomfortable for the people playing it,
Mhm.
they're not having fun.
Right.
And if you're not having fun, why are you there?
Yeah. Why are you spending the time playing that game when you can be doing something else?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
there are people who are their sole purpose in life is to ruin other people's fun, and I don't get those kind of people, but they do exist. So it's
That's
sad.
fair.
They
They do exist, and those would be the kind of
sad
players.
is the key word here.
Yeah, and those are the kind of players that the moment I realize you're one of them, you're out of my campaan.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
I don't want
Yeah.
you.
Well, so that brings on a whole different topic that we can discuss at a later time, because we are actually at the end mark of our very first podcast. So, I want to say thank you for those who are listening, and for anybody to future listen to us. We are the Game Master Circle. I'm Diggy, and
I'm
I
Astral.
go ahead.
And I'm Voyeur.
And we'd like to thank you once again, and look forward to having you listen to us again.
And maybe next time we'll turn this thing into a smoldering crater. Who knows?
Possibly.
That's-
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.